So Nike, they've gone through some pretty dramatic leadership changes over the last year or so, even bringing in a brand new CEO, a dude with a proven track record at the company in Elliott Hill, which he didn't actually officially begin that new position until October of 2024, which is not going to be, say, like a dramatic shift overnight. Remember, he actually began when Nike was already facing a deficit as revenues had declined all across the board. But in a recently leaked internal memo, it looks like we have learned that Nike has dropped their latest round of firings, meaning many people which formerly were at the company will now be out of a job. So as far as this memo, it reads a little something like this. Some of us will take on a new position or level, report to a new manager, or join a new team. A small number will depart and will honor the contributions they've made here. So essentially, this is a real classy way of saying that you got the boot, it's time to step, bro, and don't trip on the way out. So in June, Hill told analysts that the brand would no longer organize corporate teams at Nike, Jordan, and Converse around categories like men's, women's, and kids. Instead, employees will be organized into sports-obsessed teams who create the most innovative and coveted product, footwear, apparel, and accessories for the specific athletes they serve. So this is a part of his new offensive strategy, which I feel like, if things weren't working the way that they were going, it's definitely time to shake things up. Not a huge dramatic change, but it's definitely a time to take on a new approach. So as we take a look at what Nike's done here so far in 2025, we're actually going to take a look at the numbers, which actually led to all of these people being fired. And when you take a look at how many people Nike actually employs, they roughly employ around 80,000 people worldwide, in which this latest round of firings was roughly less than 1%. So you're looking at maybe a little less than 1,000 people that actually were fired. But at the end of the day, it's definitely unfortunate that people had to be let go. So let's go ahead and take a look here at what Nike's currently offering in some of their top selling categories, which of course we're going to focus on just the sneakers today, which first you got the lifestyle category, which seems to kind of be the category that Nike's maybe relied on too heavily over the last few years. Think about it. This category used to see sneakers like the Dunk Low, the Air Force One, the Jordan 1 at the top of these categories, but now it's actually kind of filled with new products. So we got the Zoom Vomero 5, part of kind of like the retro 2000s runner wave, which has been a big trend, as of lately. You definitely see a lot of people rocking the Zoom Vomero 5 on feet often. So this one's definitely a good seller for Nike. You also have a new recent release, such as the Ava Runner or Ava Rover, hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly, which is more kind of like, I guess you could say, an affordable lifestyle runner. It's not under $100, but it's not like crazy, over like $170 or something like that. Kind of the sweet spot, right at around $145. You also have your retro trainers as well, such as the Air Diamond Turf 93, a good throwback vibe right there. And then of course you got sneakers like the Air Force One, the Dunk Low, which remember, these are shoes which used to be at the top of that category, which now have kind of been bumped down to the bottom. You also have shoes like the React Rejuvenate, which seem to sell out like almost every time Nike kind of restocks these, but I ain't gonna lie, in real life, I've yet to ever see anybody wearing them. But when you talk about the lifestyle category, that's what Nike's been doing. As far as some of their big other categories, of course, you got running, which it seems like Elliott Hill's big shift is to more so focus less on lifestyle. And let's go ahead and take that sports category offensive first, which is part of this whole new strategy. So when you talk about the running category, wow, they got the Vomero Plus coming in at $180. You got this model, which they call the Structure 26, which I guess is a more affordable version, coming in at $145. And then you have more premium models, such as the Nike Pegasus, which I ain't gonna lie, the innovative look to these is there. I'm just not so sure about the tech, which it feels like Nike, in years past, used to always kind of be like the leaders of innovation. But as of lately, it feels like they've almost kind of taken a backseat to brands like Adidas. You got New Balance also occupying a big part of that running market share. And then you have other smaller brands, which have definitely made a huge spark in the industry, such as On Cloud, Hoka, all of those good brands. So as far as Nike, I like what they're doing in the running category, but they got to continue to push and focus. We'll see how things go. Remember, Elliott Hill just took over at the position. And then of course you got the basketball category, which Nike has always kind of dominated. Adidas has definitely put out some great output, but Nike, they just still continue to have some of the biggest stars in the league, such as Ja Morant, which you got the Ja 3 doing his thing. You also got Kobe models, which those are going to be legacy retros, which they continue to release pairs which are available, like what you see right here, the Kobe Elite Low. This is the Kobe 9, if I'm not mistaken, right? And then you have more limited pairs, which they drop via the sneakers app. So that's kind of what they're offering, bringing to the table when you talk about the basketball category, lifestyle, as well as the running category. But let's not forget about the hype market, because as far as Nike, they're always bringing some hype limited releases to kind of get the people, talking, downloads for the sneakers app and all of that good stuff, which then trickles on to some of their other categories. And when you talk about some of the leaders as far as Nike hype releases as of the last few years, again, that's going to fall into the category of the Nike Dunk Low. That's going to fall into the category of the Air Force One. But this year, it feels like Elliott Hill, he made a really interesting decision. And I do actually have to say I'm kind of mixed on it, but I think he's actually moving into the right direction. We saw the Nike Air Max 95 take a front seat when you talk about the hype market at Nike. Coming up here on the 12th, we actually have the latest hype collaboration, which they're teaming up with Yu-Gi-Oh! So that's a real throwback for a lot of people that grew up, trading those cards and everything like that. Some people seem like they never grew up, which they're still out here going crazy for these Yu-Gi-Oh! Joints, which are going to be dropping coming up soon. On top of that collaboration, let's not forget when Nike kind of kicked things off this year with the release of the OG Neon, probably the most coveted, of your classic Air Max 95 colorways. This one, I ain't gonna lie, I was kind of salty due to the fact that they actually only dropped these in a limited capacity, but apparently there's supposed to be some type of restock coming up later next year, which I'm definitely looking to get my hands on this classic right here. We also saw the reverse Neon, which again was one of these more exclusive drops at the MoMA store in New York City. On top of that, you also had some cool collaborations, such as the Ama Monier collaboration. You also had the Cortez, bringing that overseas worldwide connection to the sneaker and the popular streetwear brand. And then you have probably my favorite collaboration would have to go down to the Levi's, as we've seen them team up with Nike and Jordan Brand in the past, giving us 3 different options, 3 different washes of denim. I thought this one made probably the most noise when you talk about Air Max 95 collaborations this year. And it was just a cool moment, for sneakerheads overall. And we got some rumored Jordan Levi's collaborations in the works for next year, so definitely excited to see what that finished product looks like. And then let's not forget, we also had some kind of more like OG releases with that gradient gray color blocking, such as the Blue Spark colorway. These are really dope, and these are again paying homage to some of those original Air Max 95 colorways. So when you talk about hype releases, for the first time it feels like the Air Max 95 has kind of taken a front seat when you talk about Nike releases. I feel like these sneakers weren't always like the most coveted and always hype, but I kind of like what Nike did. Made y'all put some respect on this classic model, which has always been a staple. They gave it the big bubble form, a little more true to the original. You gotta love it. So these are dope. And when we take a look at those numbers, which actually led to many employees being fired, this is actually Nike's fiscal year report actually for the fourth quarter and the full year results, which we actually did get back in June, but I actually never reported the full numbers and everything like that. So as far as the full year, this is how things went down. So as far as Nike's revenues, they were down 10% actually, which they brought in $46.3 billion. So can you imagine Nike's revenue down 10%, but they still brought in $46.3 billion. For the fourth quarter, revenues were down 12%. Remember, that's the holidays, a big shopping time for the year. They brought in $11.1 billion. So overall, revenues down all across the board. But when you actually compare Nike's revenue of roughly around $50 billion, we'll round up for the year. Just compare that to Adidas at number 2, which they brought in like a little less than $25 billion. So you got to think about it. Nike, they're bringing in double the amount of revenue than the second competitor with Adidas. And then at number 3, you got a brand like New Balance, which they actually reported like around like $7.5 billion in revenue. So as you see, Nike, they're kind of just looking down at the competition. And then let's not forget, Jordan Brand, they actually do report in a whole different category. And as far as Jordan Brand's revenue, they brought in over $7 billion alone, which they operate in a whole different category. And then you got Converse as well. So when you talk about Nike, while the numbers are down, they're still bringing in crazy money. They're still leading the industry. But these are some of the moves that Elliott Hill has done. Of course, you guys know in the corporate structure, they have to continue to increase revenues each year. And if the numbers are down, even though they're bringing in over $40 billion, close to $50 billion, if they don't exceed what they brought in last year, shareholders are going to look at it as a failure. So unfortunately, that's a consequence of the corporate structure. But I kind of rock with Elliott Hill. I like what he's done so far, the moves that he's making. I think retooling, rather than focusing on men's, women's, and kids, he's actually focusing, breaking things down by the specific sports category. And then whether it's men's, women's, apparels, kids clothing, whatever it is, sneakers, you kind of just focus and tailor, bringing the most innovation to that specific category. So let me know what you guys think about the way Nike's been moving so far here in 2025. I know we'll all be salty about the limited hype releases, but as far as just the company overall, how do you guys feel like they're operating as far as lifestyle, which still is a leading category, maybe taking a back seat when you talk about focus in favor of sports categories such as running and basketball? Drop your feedback down below. JATV, I'll be checking in with you guys later for a big update. In the meantime, stay safe, stay blessed, drop your feedback. I'm out, y'all. Salute, love.